Welcome to Orange is the New Black, a podcast for diehard Bengals fans. I'm your host, Ace Boogie, joined by my co-host, Zem Houday. Zem, what's up?
Nothing much. How y'all doing, people? Houday. It's a great day to be a Bengals fan. How you doing, Ace?
I'm doing pretty good, man. Getting ready for this weekend. Obviously, the Bengals are taking on the Miami Dolphins, but there's a bunch of interesting topics that we can touch on, but I don't think that there's any that are bigger than A.J. Green and the direction of this franchise. Let me tell you guys a quick story, though. I was at the DMV yesterday, had to update my license, moved addresses, been kind of dragging my feet on it, so I did that. And, of course, in true Bengals fan fashion, I decided to wear a Bengals jacket on my way in there. I was thinking that I could try to sneak some Houday into my driver's license. And as I'm sitting there, I actually bumped into a guy that was like, "Oh, you're a Bengals fan. That's what's up. I like you seeing that you guys are repping, your team." And he happened to be a Raiders fan, and we had a real interesting conversation. So we talked about everything from what the Bengals are going to do with Dalton. A lot of fans that I talked to yesterday thought that A.J. Green was going to walk away from us. We talked about Vontaze. We talked about Paul Gunther. We talked about a lot. But the one thing that was common was that all of the fans, I talked to a Raiders fan yesterday and a Packers fan. The guy at the counter that was actually helping me was a Packers fan. They all had two things that they said that were in common. One was that we were lucky to get the number one draft pick. They thought that we should get Burrow. They said that we should consider Chase too, but they mostly said that we should go with Burrow. And the second thing was that they really thought that A.J. Green was going to leave us, or that they could get A.J. Green on their team, and I just had to tell them, like, that's not going to happen. So that segues into the A.J. Green thing. It comes out that A.J. Green basically is not going to play at all this season. He was given, I think, $15 million for this season. However, the Bengals still have not reached a deal. Me and Zim have kind of talked about this, but the plan seems to be that the Bengals want to franchise him. So it seems like they're going to hit him with the franchise tag. And obviously early on in the season when this was brought up, A.J. wasn't really too keen on it. And it seems that it's kind of like, I don't know. I'm not sure exactly how he's taking it now, because it seems like he's cool with the franchise tag. However, he still wants the deal. But then he's also saying some things that makes it seem like he feels like them franchising him seems like a lack of trust. Before I get my thoughts on it, Zem, what are your thoughts on just the AJ situation as a whole?
Trying to get a little messy. I mean, to me, it was messy throughout the year, but I guess the focus still was on football, right? So a lot of people were still thinking football. And in my mind, when it got to the trade deadline and they didn't trade him, to me, that was the spot where I'm like, hold up, what's going on here? So then the next point that I wanted to talk about, though, is that you were saying that the Bengals want to franchise him. I think that they do not want to franchise him. I think what they want to do is give him a low ball deal, something. Well, what I define as low ball will probably be around 11 to 12 million. Asian wide receiver, he's probably still feeling like he's worth like Julio, like in his mind. All players are going to think that. His agents probably tell him he's around 14, 15 mil. So when I say low ball, I'm thinking 10, 11, something like that, something crazy. So they're so far apart that the Bengals are now putting it out there, and then AJ. So if you see an Adam Schefter report, that's AJ Green's side. So A.J. Green's side is pretty much putting it out there that, yeah, we're going to a specialist, all these different things like that, just pretty much letting the Bengals know, like, hey, I'm not coming off my stance, like, this is what I'm doing. This was a pre-existing visit, and we're going to get this done, if you like it or not, whatever. But at the end of the day, if you're not willing to sign me for 4 years, all players think like this, that I'm going to go somewhere else and I'm going to just kill you there. But I thought y'all was rocking with me, is what AJ is pretty much saying. The Bengals on the other end of it are saying, well, no, if you're injured all the time, then how can we pay you? So what's the alternative? What's the thing for both sides? Okay, franchise you, right? That's a 1-year prove-it deal, essentially, and it's $18 million, and it's over his market value. But to me, that's a little messy too, because when you get to the franchise tag thing, there's a lot of stipulations with it where players don't like a lot of the details of it, and that's a whole nother show. So if he does get franchised, I think he probably balls out. I think he does that, and he has to. He's not that type of guy to just lay down or whatever. And the Bengals aren't the type that are going to lay down either and let him go. So it's going to be a franchise if they don't agree on the deal. I just think the terms of it, he's probably looking at the Tyler Boyd deal and saying, well, Tyler Boyd got $14 million a year. Right. I think he had a 3-year 14 or 3-year or 4-year 14. It's the Sterling Shepard deal. Right. And AJ Green saying, I'm AJ Green, but the Bengals are saying, yeah, you were AJ Green.
So just from some of the quotes that I have here, here's what he said to Jeff Hobson. He says that I have no problem with the franchise tag. I don't like it, but I'm not a guy that's going to sit out a whole year. But at the end of the day, that shows me they're not committed to me. That's fine. They have a business they have to run. As a player, I have my own business. So if you do that, I have to protect myself. If you're not committed to me long term, I understand. There are no hard feelings. You have a business to run. All great businesses face difficult decisions. I understand that. For me, I have to make a decision as well. So to me, I don't know. It's just kind of weird. I know some people are speculating on why he didn't play here. Some things that he said. Nobody has ever pushed me. I felt no pressure to come back and play. But this is a business. You never know. This could be my last big deal. I have to make sure everything is right, and then we go from there. But I'll be ready to go. There's also reports that he could possibly sit out OTAs if he does get franchised.
Oh yeah, he said that. He said. That's his agent telling him, like, look, this year, like, say you go on the franchise, say you do that franchise tag. If you don't, you be looking at AJ Green taking pennies the following year for AJ Green. You know what I'm saying? Say he gets hurt or something like that, he'll be taking like one of them that Dez Bryant Saints deal. It's like a 1 year, $2 million type thing, for AJ Green if he gets injured again, because then he'll be 32. So, yeah, he probably won't go to OTAs. He won't participate in any of that stuff. Only thing he'll probably be doing is getting ready for game day and hope he doesn't get hurt. And that's the other part of it that I'm like, I don't think you want to ball out, but at the same time, it's two different factors. The Bengals have to be successful next year, and if they are successful, it won't matter if he doesn't go off for like 1,200, 1,400 yards. He could go off for 800 yards, and if they're winning, it's going to make him look good. That's kind of like how the Pro Bowl works, right? Like if your team's successful, then all eyes on you, and they'll see like, damn, there's so many weapons. But if they're losing and you get 800 yards or something like that, they'll be like, damn, like that's all he did.
Right. Some other things that Green said, they asked him about kind of the first pick in the draft, so the Bengals having that. He said that it's exciting. Wherever the pick is going to be, it's going to be a big effect on our team. You pick that high, you're going to draft a guy that's going to make an impact on the team at that moment. And he also said that he just wants to win at this point in his career. It's not just about money. It's about continuing to build my legacy, and that's by winning. The goal was always to retire here. He wants to break every receiving record here, including Chad Johnson's team record of 150 catches, 1,877 yards, and 7 touchdowns. Oh, I'm sorry. That's what he trails his record by. He's trying to basically break Chad Johnson's record. Obviously, that's way too low for career records, but that's what he's trying to break. To me, I feel like the Bengals do want to franchise him because that's been kind of their cop-out in prior years when it comes to them not being able to get a multi-year deal done. It seems to me like the issue isn't the dollar signs. It seems like it's the commitment of years. And to me, I just feel like it's almost kind of like a slap in the face because this is a guy in A.J. Green who has dealt with the Bengals situation totally different than other players in the past, right? He's never once said the wrong thing. He's never once complained. He's kind of been a model football player. And how do you repay that guy? You don't give him any kind of insurance or faith or put any kind of faith into essentially your best football player. To me, that just sends the wrong message not only to your fan base, it sends the wrong message to guys in the locker room, the guys like the Joe Mixons and some of your future talent of the William Jackson IIIs. If you could do a guy like A.J. Green like that, who has never once talked about wanting to sit out or has sat out for any kind of contract disputes, has made any big deals about money, has talked anything bad about your coaches or anything like that. He's never been that guy. If you can do it to that guy, that just sends the wrong message, I think, as a whole. Now, I'm a huge A.J. Green guy, and it's just not because he's one of the most amazing receivers that I ever seen coming out of college, but it's also about what he stands for. Like, you look around the league, you see guys like Antonio Brown, you see guys that are divas that make a lot of football about them and not the team. He's never been that guy. He's never been a guy that's really complained about what it takes to win. He's been a guy that just wants to do things the right way, and for this to happen is just very messy to me, and it's just another sign to me, based on their history, or me watching how the Bengals deal with players, it's just not right. I mean, like I said, and that's why I say the things that I've done. A.J. Green has done so much for this franchise, has made them so much money when you talk about just jersey sales alone and just putting people in the seats. He saved them from a tumultuous season that they came off of with Carson Palmer, where he essentially quit on the Bengals and pretty much exposed them for being a misrun franchise. And the guy that helped you kind of come out of that, get your fans back and things of that, he isn't worth a 3-year deal. And the guy comes out and says that he's not asking for Julio Jones money, so it's not like he's out there asking for, $20 million a year or something. He just wants a commitment. And I mean, at this age, NFL players anywhere, when they get 30 and things like that, that's all these guys really want. And it sucks because what will happen is, a team like the Ravens or a franchise like the Ravens that always pick up these veterans and give them decent deals, they don't pay them anything crazy, but they give them some kind of insurance that they're going to actually be on a roster. Why can't the Bengals do the same thing with their own player? Like, it's A.J. Green. It's kind of mind-boggling to me. It's mind-boggling.
Let me interject, my friend. All right. So I listened to everything that you said. But I think there's a lot of different points that, you emphasize the fact that you're saying A.J. Green, look what he's done. I mean, how could they, why would they do this? I'm not, you didn't say that word for word, but
right.
How does the front office pay him back? Look what he's done. He hasn't played since 2018. Since the bye from 2018, he hasn't done anything. With the mentality, if your argument is based on the past, then you're no different than a Dalton lover. Oh my God, I just did it. Hey, look, before the show, everybody, inside track. I said, Ace, I'm not gonna mention Dalton one time today, and I failed it. It's just because I love Andy so much, guys. I'm sorry. I even dyed my hair orange this morning just so I could just feel like Dalton when I wake up every day. 4th and 3. All right, but listen, yeah, a good franchise. All right, so look, the Dunlap and the Atkins contracts, the Gio Bernard's contracts, right?
Right.
I don't have a great metaphor for this, but it's almost kind of like when I do so much for my wife sometimes, and then even at the end of it, she's still like, okay, but yeah, I need this, right? I'm like, I just gave you Gino. I just gave you Dunlap. Essentially what you're saying, all these things, these are all players that did just as much. I mean, Gio got his brains took out, for us in the playoff game against the Steelers, and he's humbled. He's like a candidate for Walter Payton Man of the Year this year. So he's a great guy, great influence, all these different things. They rewarded him with a contract, and he was available. A.J. Green isn't available so from a business standpoint. If I'm the Bengals, right? I'm not Jerry Jones. I'm not a billionaire. I don't have all these sources of income. My one business is this team. I'm can't wrap my mind around paying somebody, like currently right now in what I do for a living and everything like that. I can't wrap my mind around paying somebody just based off their past. I don't pay anybody that's not available. I need to see your face. I need to see you working, and then
Right.
I'll pay you handsomely. Like, I'll pay you well if I see you and you're working and you're doing AJ Green type stuff. But he isn't there. So how could the franchise commit that much money to somebody for 3 years coming up, and then you don't know? I mean, he's now reaching that point. Like when Dez Bryant and Ocho Cinco and all these guys get to that 31, that's that magic number. You fall off. Like, and if you don't have the athleticism anymore to keep up with these brand new corners that are coming out, you could be Larry Fitzgerald. But what's Larry Fitzgerald's like? And I'm not comparing AJ Green to Larry Fitzgerald because he's not that. I still believe in the GOAT. I still want them to pay AJ Green. I'm just saying from a business perspective, it doesn't really make sense at all to pay him that. So the only way you can hold on to him to say, hey, I do kind of believe in you. I do believe you is the franchise you. It's going to be a 1-year deal. And then in the midst of that, we get to week 8 or something like that, you balling out, shoot. I'm gonna throw the kitchen sink at you. Like the Bengals do. Like one of the misconceptions about this franchise is that they do re-sign and pay their players. If you go look at like the Steelers and historically Green Bay up into this past year, whatever like that, they don't retain their players that well. And the players that they do retain, they aren't like the main focal points. That's why like Le'Veon Bells of the world and Antonio Browns like will always complain. And to me, I will pay Antonio Brown whatever he said for the Steelers. He doesn't work at other franchises, but I would have paid him anything because at the time he's the best wide receiver in football. I mean, or you could argue it, whatever. But AJ Green, I can't just work off of his past. If I was just working off his past, I would pay him more than anything in the world, and it just doesn't make sense. He hasn't been available. You had some other points in there that I wanted to go into because you said a lot of good stuff, and I'm on your side, like as a fan, but as a Bengals organization, no, a good franchise wouldn't pay him. A well-run franchise wouldn't pay him no 3-year, 4-year deal, none of that stuff. A good, well-run franchise would have had some money.
That's why I feel like we disagree because the Ravens have made a living off of that, right? Like,
no, but that's in free agency though. Right. Like their current players, like no, yeah, they'll go get a Adrian Hushman's out of that, take a flyer on them. And one of the reasons why you're using Ravens for that, their assessments on wide receivers are terrible. The only way that they ever get a good wide receiver or a decent one up until this year with Hollywood Brown, with the jury still out, right? Right. Is when they get aging superstars. They always miss in the draft on wide receivers. So they always have to go get those type of guys. The Bengals don't have to do that, guys, because they usually assess wide receiver and a running back position pretty damn well. Right. So, like, to me, if I'm the Bengals, this is now, all right, so AJ Green, you want to, like, that's the part where it's messy. Because if they knew that they were so far apart, then, a good franchise would have traded him right there. Like a good, and then you said the fans don't deserve this and stuff. In my comments, go look at if you guys don't know Ace's New Stripe City on Twitter, New Stripe City on Instagram. I'm Zim_Hude on Instagram. I'm Zim Hude on Twitter. But on Instagram, my AJ Green post, every single person said we should have traded him, get rid of him, get him out of here. Fans will turn on him real quick. I think the majority of fans are probably on your side of the table. Like, we love you, AJ, and whatever, right? But to me, that's that old Bengal stuff. It's like paying these old guys that don't really do anything, and then we're sitting there thinking like, damn, why are we 8-8? Because we're not getting new talent. And I think AJ Green still has a lot in the tank. But fans are very aggressively upset at this season. I will say, following me, I am an aggressive person, so a lot of the things that I'm telling people are like, make a quick decision, get rid of him, keep him, whatever. I never even really speak on AJ Green, but I would say that my page probably wouldn't be a good example of it, but the majority of the comments on there on all my AJ Green posts are like, get rid of him. They should have traded him. I was on AJ Green's side. I hate to hear him talk like this. Like, go read that stuff. Like, they're not really rocking with him like that.
Yeah, that's true.
And then you couple that with this is a big time wide receiver draft. There might be 4 or 5 wide receivers going in the first round this year, and then the next round it's supposed to be so loaded with talent that the Bengals probably are sitting there saying, well, there are some wide receivers. But it's stupid because they should have traded him if they was going to do all this.
Right. So several things that you said there, I agree with. Like, I'm not saying that the Bengals should just sign him to this deal where he gets paid if he gets injured. And that's where I don't see that part of it. Like, there are stipulations that teams can put into contracts where if AJ doesn't play a certain amount of games, then his contract isn't worth as much. So I'm not sure if that's being brought up and if he's on board with that or not, but that to me is, I feel like, another reason that they could get this done. Then you also talk about the fact that they're going to have $17 million next year, where they could essentially release Andy Dalton, trade him, and have $17 million off of the books. So it's not like they're hurting for money. But to me, one thing that has been consistent with the Bengals, yes, they re-sign players, but if you've ever noticed, any player that gets over 30 with the Bengals, like luckily they kind of did it with Dunlap and Geno, they usually let them walk. That's like always been the case. Like as soon as they get kind of old, outside of the anomalies of Pac-Man and Geno and Carlos, they always let those guys walk. And to me, it just is kind of idiotic because this is a franchise that's still recovering from the Andrew Whitworth debacle from a few years ago, where they basically said, oh, we are going to bet money that you're not going to be the same player and you're going to fall off a cliff. And here he is still 3 years later, still playing at a decent level. He hasn't really fell off to the point that he's worse than Bobby Hart or Cordy Glenn or anything like that. So to me, it's just a mistake on that point.
Speaking of Bobby Hart, how about him having the highest rated Pro Football Focus grade this past week of his whole entire career?
He's doing his thing. I think that's a product of Cordy Glenn as well, returning, stabilizing that other side.
You hating on Bobby Hart? You hating?
I'm not hating on Bobby Hart. I'm just saying, like, I don't think that it's a coincidence that, you know, Cordy Glenn comes back and things are more stable on that side, and that kind of helps him as well. Like, I'm not really, like, I don't think Bobby Hart is as bad as people say that he is, but I'm not thinking that Bobby Hart is the answer. Like, I've seen Bobby Hart at FSU. Like, he's not like he probably should be a very good backup for you, but he probably shouldn't be starting. But outside of that, I just think, like, growing up a Bengals fan and seeing them, like, not treat players who have, you know, done things for their franchise right just leaves a bad taste in my mouth. And for this to be the guy that the Bengals never really deserved in the first place, it just leaves a bad taste in my mouth. And it's not just because of AJ. It's just, you just look back, man. You talk about Corey Dillon, Takeo Spikes, Carson Palmer, Chad Ochocinco, TJ Houshmandzadeh. All these guys are bitter with the Bengals because they do stuff like this. And it's like, instead of creating some kind of culture and some kind of history and some kind of connection, you know, with your players, they just choose not to do it. And I don't think that it's the fact of, you know, they didn't give them money and stuff like that. I think it's really about the way that they go about things. It's how the things play out, and it's always ugly. And it's just kind of, I don't know. For me as a fan, I'm just kind of tired of it, honestly, because what message does that send? It's just like, yeah, it's a great business move, but what message does it send? They think that great business moves are not wasting money in free agency. What message does that send? It really just sends that you don't want to win, you don't want to be a successful franchise, and you don't want your own players to even, you know, appreciate playing for your franchise. Like, that's just where it goes to me. But, I mean, they're going to do what they're going to do, but honestly, if this plays out that way, it's just really going to be a shame, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. I would but I feel like they have retained a bunch of people that they shouldn't have. So to me, it goes both ways. Like, you take a chance, and as a fan, it's easy to remember the guys that left and go somewhere else. Like, I actively watch Marvin Jones like every week. If y'all don't know, Marvin Jones plays for the Detroit Lions. He went on IR this past weekend. But even from fantasy football, like I zero in on the Mahomes Sanu's of the world, or even when Marcus Hunt had left and he went to the Colts and he did well. Like, those are the things that I be like, dang, well, but they retain a lot of guys that I don't think that they should. So from a fan perspective, I think we're always looking at, and we're always going to be looking at the guys that left and succeeded somewhere, or the guys that they felt that they should have paid. But what about the guys like Jake Fisher that they re-signed, the Preston Browns of the world, like all these guys that at the time people wanted them to resign, and they did, and then they don't really do that much, or they don't do well at all, and then the fans then turn and say, like, imagine if we didn't re-sign Tyler Eifert this past year, and he went to Green Bay like he was supposed to. Mm-hmm. The fan base would have killed them. They got him back. They got Preston Brown back. They got They picked up Darqueze Dennard's fifth-year option. They picked up what I was saying. They did that. They did have the Jake Fisher one. It was like all these different ones that, on paper beforehand, it sounded good. I mean, they just re-signed Gio. They re-signed Uzoma. For every person that y'all saying that has left and that shouldn't have left, they got 3 or 4 people that they kept that they shouldn't have kept. It's like this gamble with them, and they pay them well, probably more than what other people. Like, okay, somebody hit me the other day and say, "Oh, you saw Tyler Kroft? He got the game-winning touchdown." I'm like, yeah, Tyler Kroft or Uzoma. You had to pick one. And right. It's like that every year to me. And I don't really look at them like that. I feel like the Bengals retain a lot more than a lot of teams. Like, each year, I go through my list, and I thought the worst signing, and it's on my page and everything, was Preston Brown. I thought that was worse than Bobby Hart, just for the amount of money, because of the other linebackers that got paid that same money. Like, right. Just didn't make sense to me for a linebacker that can only play on first down. Like, I don't know. And then in 2019, you can't even pay a linebacker like that. I mean, you can't even play him on first down, because teams are bombing in on first down and passing and getting teams side to side. So I get it. Like, yeah, there's some big time players that they couldn't resign, but there are a bunch of people that they kept on resigning, like Leon Hall, where they. Like, imagine him leaving. Everybody like, oh, my God, Leon Hall's gone. You had to pick one, Leon Hall or Jonathan Joseph. You pick Leon Hall. Then later on in his career, everybody's crying about he gets paid too much because he didn't perform at the level that everybody wanted. That's just how this goes for every team. Every team says that same thing. Some teams don't retain any of them at all, and those are usually the worst teams in the NFL.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. I think the Bengals, they retain players, but most of the time the guys that they pick are the wrong guy. I'm not saying that Uzoma was the wrong guy, because I'm not a CJ Uzoma hater or anything like that.
Last year he was solid.
I think he's way better than Tyler Kroft. I think that's kind of ridiculous that a guy catches his only touchdown of the season and people are talking about, look at Tyler Kroft. But
it's just one of those things, I think it flashes in the radar, just like when Rex Burkhead scored the touchdown last week. It's just like flashes in your face because you're like, damn, I remember him.
It's just like, I don't know. They keep the Bobby Harts, but then they let the Andrew Whitworths walk away. It just doesn't, I don't know. Okay. It just doesn't make sense. But
well, I got a couple questions for you, Ace. I got a couple people that have wrote in some comments, and they want to get your take on this.
Sure.
My first first question, is what staff member, this is Owen Hart. What is this, Bobby Hart's brother? Owen Hart, 216. He says, do you think that the Bengals should go out and get any new people on their staff? And are there anybody that you think that they should be looking at?
Yeah, Owen sounds like he must be from Cleveland or from somewhere, 216. Yeah, I mean, I think that they have to go out and get a new offensive line coach. They don't have to go too far. They can bring in Callahan's dad. I think that they should do that. Outside of that, there are other areas that I think that they could improve at on the coaching staff. But I honestly like our defensive coordinator. I think our linebackers coach, Labaku, that they picked up is actually a solid coach. He just didn't have much that he could deal with there. Quarterback coaches, I think we're pretty strong there. So I think if there was any coach that should be replaced, it should possibly be that offensive line coach. Secondary coach, I'm not too sure about. Maybe you consider somebody there because secondary, I don't know. It's really hard to say because the secondary has looked up and down. So maybe you look there. But those would really, for me, be the biggest spots. And I can't believe I'm forgetting this, the offensive coordinator. I don't know if the plan is to let Callahan call the plays or not, but I think that's another change that should be done. I think Zach Taylor needs to just worry about being a head coach and give the play calling duties to his own offensive coordinator.
For sure. I agree pretty much with everything you just said. The next question is, what if Joe Burrow is a bust? Where do the Bengals go from there?
They go and take another quarterback. I mean,
I'm sorry. This guy's name is Tarami 44.
And to Rami, that's no disrespect or anything, but it's just we don't live in this era, and I think a lot of people think of the era with the Jamarcus Russells where you're pretty much enslaved to that number one pick. The CBA makes it so it's not like that anymore. And we saw what Arizona did with getting rid of Josh Rosen so fast. And you're going to see it with the Chicago Bears and Mitchell Trubisky. Best believe that's coming pretty soon. But we live in an era where if you make the wrong decision there's two ways that you can go. You can either bring in a veteran or you can go and take your shot and shoot your shot at the next one. And if he's that bad and the Bengals end up picking number one or number two again, then you just go and take another quarterback. I mean, I think it's that simple. Would you regret passing on a Chase Young? Yeah, you could say that, but at the time you needed a quarterback, and at the time you made the decision for what was best for your team. And it's no secret that this is a quarterback league. I mean, look at what Lamar Jackson's impact is on the Ravens. With that being said, I think that's what you do is you go back to the drawing board and you shoot your shot again and you shoot until you hit.
You must have known this next question was going to come up. Somebody just asked, this is my last question I have for you today. The last question that I have is from my man Brandon K. He says, who would you rather have if you were starting a franchise today, Lamar Jackson or Patrick Mahomes?
I actually didn't know that was coming. But Brandon, if it were up to me, right now I would rather have Lamar Jackson. And the reason that I say that is because although Pat Mahomes is a great quarterback, I think that this era forgot about how valuable Mike Vick was, and that was one of my points that I tried to make. And a lot of people was like, oh, they're going to figure him out. No one ever figured Michael Vick out. That never happened. And you're talking about a guy like Lamar Jackson. He figured himself out
because he didn't work hard enough.
Yeah, like Mike, the thing that stopped Mike Vick was Mike Vick went to jail. That was the only thing that stopped Michael Vick, not NFL defenses. The fact that he didn't have a defense himself also kind of held him back in the playoffs, but there was no defense for that. So I think if it were up to me, I would take Lamar Jackson simply because he brings so much value from a running standpoint as a quarterback, and he brings so much confusion. And I played defense in high school, and for me, and I think I talked about this on my page, the hardest person that you ever want to guard against as a defensive player is a mobile quarterback because you never know what's going to happen. You never know what could happen on the play. Every play is potentially kind of like come up with on the spot. So that's something that you can't game plan for. And the type of player that he is with how fast he is, linebackers and stuff like that, they're not going to be able to catch that guy. Like, he's going to juke them out of their socks just like we saw him put Vigil and some of our linebackers in the spin cycle. So I would take Lamar Jackson. That's not to say that Pat Mahomes isn't a great quarterback. It's just like, would you rather have Brett Favre or would you rather have Michael Vick? And I tend to side with the Michael Vick because from a defensive standpoint, game planning standpoint, you're going to struggle with that. I think that he impacts your entire offense like we're seeing with Baltimore.
You said, would you rather have Mike Vick or Brett Favre, right? I don't think that's really the question. I think the question really is, would you rather have Pat Mahomes or Lamar Jackson? Because they're not comparable like that. Like, it's not that cut and dry to me. And to me, I will go Pat Mahomes because he has the mobility that I need. I think he'll be able, with the arm strength that he has, I think he'll be playing forever. That's not to say that Lamar Jackson won't, because I'm banking on Lamar Jackson just outsmarting everyone and not taking contact and stuff. Like, I don't want him to take contact at all eventually. Like, if you watch Tyreek Hill, I always tell people, watch the Tyreek Hill game. When he doesn't have any hero cards that he tries to play, and it's a beautiful thing to watch, and it's like the new NFL. It kind of matches up with, like the money and players holding out and stuff like that. Players got smart. And Tyreek Hill, when he gets the ball and stuff, he flies down the field, but when he gets close to that sideline or whatever, he scoops right on out, and you don't even remember it. You go on to the next play. Lamar Jackson, if he can master that, he'll play in this league forever, and no one will ever be able to stop him. And it'll make everybody upset. And I'm really, more than anything in this world, people be like, man, I hope he passes better. I think he's already good enough. I could screen you to death with him if you felt like you didn't trust his arm, because the way that he creates space and stuff is just unlike anything else, because everybody's got to hesitate. Nobody can shoot a gap, and it'll be like that forever. But Pat Mahomes, to me, is just one of the greatest arm talents, or I just never seen somebody flick a ball 70 yards down the field like that and be able to, like, move like he moves in the pocket like Steve Young. Somebody asked me during my live, I wanted to ask you this too. Who does Joe Burrow remind you of more than anybody?
Who does Joe Burrow remind me of? I honestly,
it's just one player. Don't try to put two people. Don't try to make some mega.
Personality-wise, Tom Brady.
Okay, but no, skill-wise, who does he remind you of?
I couldn't really give you a definitive.
I got one.
Definitive one on that. Go ahead.
He's as big as Andrew Luck, but I'm not gonna go there because he's faster. He reminds me of Steve Young. I went back like on some like old games and stuff like that, and just my childhood and stuff like that. I was very, very young, but Steve Young was one of the first white quarterbacks that I knew that just had like mobility and had that arm talent that I'm looking for. Because somebody the other day, and they thought this was blasphemy, was comparing him to Deshaun Watson, right? And I said, it's not that far-fetched. Deshaun Watson is not Lamar Jackson's speed. Joe Burrow is not Lamar Jackson's speed, but he's got this gear to him. Sometimes he gets out in that open field, and Andrew Luck never, like, that would probably be the other person I think that can run like how he does, but he's just as fast. He's maybe just a hair. If Deshaun Watson runs a 4.6 or something like that, then Burrow runs like a 4.75 or 4.7. Like, he's one of the faster quarterbacks in the NFL already, like day one. And it doesn't look like that because he's so big and he's got these long strides. But he moves like Steve Young in the pocket. He throws like Steve Young. Like, if you get a chance, young Bengals fans listening or older fans, just tell me, write your thoughts on this or whatever. I want you guys to keep on tuning in to Cincy Jungle podcast. Orange is the New Black podcast on Cincy Jungle. If you get a chance, comment on our stuff. Tell us who you think Joe Burrow reminds you of. But to me, it's like a bigger Steve Young. I don't want to splice three quarterbacks together, but he moves like him, and he's got that speed. Go watch this. You'll be like, man, I never thought about that. Watch.
The one thing that I'll say, I think, like you said, Joe Burrow. But one last thing I want to say about LJ and Mahomes, right? I think with Mahomes, we've seen exactly what his ceiling is his first year. The scary thing about Lamar Jackson, the scary thing about Lamar Jackson, we haven't seen, like, we think this is his best now, but he's not even a polished passer like that yet. So I think that there's still potential, scarily, for him to actually get better than what he's doing right now.
Have you ever seen that I'm sorry. I thought.
Go ahead.
Have you ever seen the interaction that Lamar Jackson had with Jim Harbaugh that day on the sideline, and Jim Harbaugh saying, hey, man, I love you, man. You be balling out. And then Lamar Jackson's like, I love you, coach. Like, no, we're going to do it. And Jim Harbaugh was like, man, that's what I like about you. You got this thing where you're just always trying to learn, and you're trying to – this is in the middle of the game. They're, like, blowing somebody out by, like, 21 points. If you guys are listening to this, go on YouTube and watch this. It's the most beautiful conversation. Because he's like, man, it's great. Harbaugh's like, you're doing great, man. Like, you're just – I mean, they can't stop you. He's like, nah, coach, they can't stop our team. Like, we're about to do this. Like, and I mean, like, I was like, whoa, how did the Bengals have him in for a dinner? and didn't catch none of that? Is
Right.
it maybe I grew up around a bunch of like savages and people that have like strong accents where I'm from, and maybe that threw them off. But like you could hear the passion, you could hear it in his
Oh,
heart.
you could hear it on draft night. You could
Yeah,
hear it on draft
yeah.
night when it
I
was
mean,
big.
they finna get a Super Bowl out of me, and maybe like to the average person that maybe I'm not even gonna call you uncultured. I'm just saying the person that probably doesn't go outside of their hometown. To hear someone with that Miami draw to them a little bit, it might not be like the same like for you. That's probably normal where you're at, right? But
Right,
the
it's
average
normal from Reed, but when I
the
first
average
came
person,
down here, it kind of threw me off, like you're saying. Like when I came from Ohio and came down and heard people like that talk, like you probably would think that he, isn't intelligent, but he's actually very smart.
I
And I
was
think a lot of
just
people
about to say that.
judge a book by its cover without actually understanding the person themselves.
Exactly. I mean, I was just going to say that. I was like, a lot of times people get what people are, I'm not even going to say afraid of, or people just haven't been introduced to, sometimes makes them feel as though like they're unintelligent because of what society has told us someone should speak like or talk like when they are intelligent, right? And because he talks with that draw and he got that Miami like still in him or whatever, and he might not be exposed. You might ask him some Pythagorean theorem stuff, and maybe he didn't get that course or maybe whatever. But on life, he's probably like one of the most intelligent people that this world will ever see. And you could get that off of like just brief interactions with him. And I just want people to really, really check it out. Somebody hit me the other day. I think it's your man T. Moody. He was like, man, get off Lamar's balls. He's never going to be a Bengal. I'm like, no, this is for the culture, bro. Like, I just really like watching them play. When the Bengals play next year or whatever, whether Joe Burrow is good or not, right? And I know he will be good. Joe Burrow hater. We got to figure out a name for Joe Burrow haters. But he will be good, right? But one thing, the Bengals can win 3 games, 4 games, 5 games. I wouldn't care. I want to have fun. I want to have a good time watching a Bengals game. I don't want to see a bunch of 3-and-outs and somebody that's scared to succeed on third down. Like, I want somebody that's willing to die on third down to go get a first. And that is Joe Burrow. And I just want that excitement for the Bengals fans. I get excited when I watch I hate to say it. I don't like the Ravens. Don't kill me, Houday Nation. But I get excited. Like, I watched a Thursday night football game one time and a Sunday night football, and I was glued to the TV watching. I was like, what is Lamar going to do next? I want that.
I think another thing Moody doesn't realize, and Moody is my guy, he already knows. But I think it's like he doesn't realize that this is our worst nightmare playing out, right? We wanted Lamar. Not only does he get drafted, and the Bengals don't draft him, someone in the division gets him, and now he's on an MVP road to the Super Bowl. This is our nightmare. This is what we didn't want to happen.
But you know what though? It doesn't, like, say he would have went to the Steelers. Yeah, I would be ripping my hair out. My locks would be on the floor. I would be like, I'd be crushed. But the Ravens, I don't hate the Ravens. Like, I don't hate them. I don't want them to win when they play us. I don't know. Maybe do other Bengals fans feel like that? Because T. Moody, he does hate the Ravens. He absolutely hates them. And
he's from the Maryland area, so I think it's a little bit different for him.
Okay, so shout out T. Moody. Like, he always be showing love. He always been on my Instagram lives on Sundays. Like, he's always there. But he got on me the other day. Said he probably don't even think I read the comment. I read all the comments, people. But he's like, get off Lamar's balls. You know what I'm saying? Like, he's never gonna be a Bengals. That's not what it's about to me. It's like all the guys that I went to school with that could run and they could ball out, and I always was like, man, there's no way they're not going to the league. And they didn't get it. They represent Lamar. Like, Lamar Jackson represents them to me. I could name 10 Lamar Jacksons when I was in high school that were like number one in the nation that the NFL just never gave a chance. I never figured it out. And they can't. They'll try to tell you arm strength. They'll tell you all these other things. The politics of it just make me upset a little bit, but Lamar Jackson to me is like a good person. Is bigger than football to me. If the Ravens win the Super Bowl, I'm going to hate those conversations with Ravens fans because they will be able to bank on that. I think I'll just counter with, well, y'all was trash before y'all had Lamar. Lamar's your whole team. I've been thinking about my counter arguments all the time. So I'll just blame it on, like, Lamar Jackson and Jim Harbaugh and the rest of your team is trash. I'll just blame it on that. So I'm not really worried about them winning the Super Bowl.
Right. So with that being said, thanks for listening to the Orange is the New Black podcast. We have to run. We might have to throw in a bonus episode for Miami, but thanks for listening, and we'll leave you guys with a who dat.
Hold up. You want them to win? That's the magic question they want to know, Ace. Do the Bengals need to win the Dolphins on Sunday?
No, sir.
All right. Well, Ace said it. I kind of don't want them to win either, and we're going to beat the Browns. We're going to beat the pants off the Browns, guys. All right. Who dat?